What's going on, my creative collective? Welcome to lesson number 38, Bench Pressing the Speed of Light. This is A Course in Creativity inspired by A Course in Miracles workbook lessons. So this particular lesson looks at the idea that our holiness, and our light inside, there's nothing that it can't do. What I really want to focus on here in terms of our creative capacity is what we do, the doing. So what are our doing things? Our doing things, usually it's confined to our body, right? And the rules that we look to the outside world to make up about what we should be, doing with our body in terms of just what, how are we limited? What are we told that we can't do, shouldn't do, couldn't, wouldn't, don't, cannot because of this thing? And it's really an examination of our limitations and the limitations that we place on ourselves on the one hand, but then on the flip side of this, what other options are available to us for our light to become when we look into the world and see ourselves in it? Not just that, but then we also see it in other people. This way of seeing becomes available to us, and it becomes possible for us not just to see spirit in things that are happening to us, right? The events, but we're able to see it kind of at the source. We're able to go to the source of it, right? And see it in other people and in ourselves. So what this particular lesson for me is about is not so much the question of what would you do if you knew you couldn't fail? What would you feel if you knew you couldn't fail or would be deemed not a failure because of you feeling those things? How does this relate to doing? Well, usually we do because we're inspired by a particular feeling, or there's a feeling at the heart of what it is that we're doing, right? That's our why, right? We do things for a why, usually. Though I will say that it's nice to give yourself a break and just to do stuff because, right? That's why this is my hobby, right? Does it need to become something? Nope. Do I want it to become something? Nope. I just want that for me, right? That's so that you can escape this doingness, right? And just be. Because we live in a world that even hobbies, people are like, oh, turn it into a side hustle. You're so good, blah, blah, blah. No. And that's not to say that I'm good at that necessarily, which I love, playing. When I was in university doing my undergrad, I would play shows and things like that, Women's Day shows and stuff. And that was fun. It was fun because I, being myself, refused to learn specific songs that I taught myself how to play by ear. And then I would just write songs. So that's how I would operate with it. But I didn't want to turn it into anything because it's escaping this doing as a reminder too, that there's a light that exists outside of us doing that goes beyond it. And that's how we understand that there's nothing your light can't do, because when you operate outside of this doing, then what you get into is the awareness of the power of that, not just to shape reality, not just to create stuff in the world, but to get to the baseline of your feeling state, to get to the baseline of how you feel and why you feel that way, right? To get to the baseline of that. And in keeping with the theme from yesterday in terms of, your light being relatively quiet, right? It's really not loud. It can have impact, but that's different from making noise. And here, in this particular lesson, what resonates, and I wanted to share here with everyone based on things that I've learned in my own experience and just pulling from the lessons in terms of creativity, is that you kind of understand that your light doesn't really do anything other than just be. Your light doesn't need to, it just is. And if it shines, it's not shining because of you doing anything. It's you being you, doing you, but primarily being instead of a doing, because we've associated doing as going out into the world, and that is will exacting itself upon the world. But what this is suggesting is that there is a way of just sitting in the quiet within yourself. What if that was a doing for you? Now, we know too that we're embodied, and that is, you are a spiritual being having a human experience. We, at all times, the tension that we may find in our lives will exist in balancing these things: spiritual experience, human being, spiritual being, human experience, right? They will balance, and that's part of our work here, is to transmute and alchemize those lessons so that we can remain in a higher vibration, so that we can remain in a higher state, not because we need to, it just feels good. And that's, I do not believe that we were brought here to suffer. I believe that we were brought here primarily to experience joy and to know ourselves as the creators of that through a whole bunch of different things available to us, right? I know my life has been a testament to that. It's been a huge testament to that. And people will disagree and all of that, but that's okay, because that's their journey, right? I was watching Selfhealer Soundboard with Nicole LaPera and Jenna. Ooh, I forgot her last name, so whoops. But there was one about being misunderstood, right? And just letting yourself be misunderstood, just letting that happen. And it was so freeing, because you spend so much time trying to articulate yourself so clearly. And, my Chiron is in Gemini, for those who are my astrology nerds. That's just this need to be so clear and precise with language, almost communicating not to a fault, because I don't know that that's really a thing, but and this isn't just unique to the Chiron in Gemini, but this is really about being okay with people not necessarily understanding you. And then I thought about it in the context of this light, right? Our light doing something. What is light? Light to me is spirit in the world, in us, operating around us, with us, through us. But it always exists in the quiet, right? And this is, again, yesterday's lesson. The quiet is where the light is, right? That's where the light is. And also too, Leonard Cohen's poem about the cracks are where the light gets in. I have to, I laugh a little bit because, Abraham Hicks quote too, building on one another, right? That's, the crack of least resistance. That's where your light gets in. That's where your light enters in. Now, there's nothing that your light can't do. What does this mean for you? What is it? There's another, John Kabat Zinn's book, Wherever You Go, There You Are. I think about it in this context too, but pulling back for a second, wherever you go, spirit is. Wherever your light goes, so too spirit shines, right? So instead of doing, what if we just pulled back for a second and just sat with the being of it? And I talk a lot about coming back to the present moment and being in the present moment, because we live in a world that rewards you, like high fives, yay, go you, for being so in your head and having everything perfectly planned out. It doesn't work that way. Life is so funny because, developing all these autoimmune symptoms and stuff in 2020 and dealing with that through the beginning of 2021, and now having no symptoms, thankfully, because it's, you work through the process, right? And that's not to say that that's everyone's path, right? But getting to the other side of that, I really see like there's a way that you're rewarded for working really hard. And this isn't to say don't work hard, but also remember that I think about it this way. I'm a visual person, so I'll give you this here. This can be a creative spark if you want. I still have more to share, but we'll throw this in. But if you need to personify your Mars, okay, the shadow side of Mars, to see when you slip into that for yourself, personify it and put a face to it so you can hear yourself in that visualization that you have, so that you can hear yourself speaking to yourself about where you are, about what you're doing. And then you can also recognize if you're even here, because the moment is happening with or without you, right? If you're up here, it's probably without you, but then it's also always happening at the same time. So can you really miss it? No. But what I found helpful is to personify my Mars. So, I put faces to it, like, a sort of Tony Robbins whispering in my ear, even though he does have good points. This is not to malign these teachers. These are fantastic teachers. And, in order to heal a lot of my solar plexus energy as I was going through my autoimmune issues, I would listen to podcasts with these folks on it because it helped me to heal that energy and to assert myself in the world. There does reach a point though where you have to cap that and come back into your body and rebalance the energy and redistribute it through your energy centers so that it does not become lopsided into one and then expands outward from that place only, right? So putting faces to it like Tony Robbins or David Goggins or Tom Bilyeu. And again, not because their teachings are fundamentally bad, but because if that's where your doing is focused, and if that's the culture that you adhere to, which all of us are participating in that right now, right? We reward those who are just doing all the time. And what the reality of that is if you can personify that, you can then see yourself in your patterns. If you are, really, if type A, if you fall into those different categories, it's weird to me to think of, the categories like that, because everybody's different aspects of it in different ways, right? Someone who's emotionally a type A doesn't necessarily adhere to the same type A as the way it's prescribed through different teachings in the world. So there's different ways that can show up. And I feel like we limit ourselves when we use categories like that. So these are just examples to help visualize and then to pull yourself back in. Are you talking to yourself the way David Goggins talks to audiences? And like, if that feels like it's out of discord, like if it's out of accord with where you want to be, then how do you pull yourself back in to yourself, to your heart center? Because that's where you need to hear from. Because if you're acting from somewhere other than that place, if you're acting from too much solar plexus, if it's out of alignment, it will also be really exceedingly difficult for you to speak truths that matter, and to also comprehend, because your throat chakra is going to be way out of balance too, right? And we're all works of art ever unfolding, so no one gets it perfect, ever. Despite what some people might make you think, like there's no, just because somebody has a microphone doesn't mean that they're doing it perfectly. And that's the beauty of it, is that's the courageous part too, right? Is that teachers teach what they learned. Teachers teach what they have been learning or what they are learning. And that's the really cool part and the courageous part about a lot of teachings and teachers that I've seen here on YouTube. So that's really inspiring. Your light doesn't have to do anything other than just be in you. And for you to recognize that and just to sit with that is its own form of rest, right? That is its own form of rest, because you're not struggling against, you're not rushing to do anything with the light. It's enough for it to just be there. It's enough for it to just be there. I think, one of the things that I laugh at and within myself too, because I can have all these best laid plans as to how it should go, and yes, this is so fantastic and what it's going to look like, and yeah, but then at the end of the day, spirit laughs when the ego makes plans. And that's really the equation, right? Spirit laughs when the ego makes plans, because my vision exists only in this capacity. This morning, Kyle Cease talked about this on one of his videos in terms of the way that, our plans are this big. Our plans are laughably small for where we're supposed to go, right? And it's about leaning into that and knowing that you're playing the game, right? The matrix, as it were. But you're playing the game, but there's rules that change, and sometimes there's different ways that you play it, and that changes too. So being in this awareness that your light shining doesn't have to do specific things, and that it's okay for it to just shine, is huge. It's huge, because you also are able to forgive yourself. You're able to forgive yourself for the times where you may feel that your light didn't do what it was supposed to do, and all of these things, and the ego's like, these are the stories of what it should do. And I find too that spiritual communities talk about mission a lot, and I've had to really deprogram from a lot of this stuff. Do I believe that I'm here for a specific purpose? Yes. Do I really want to help other people and be in service to them? Yes. There's a whole slew of different ways that can happen, though. And if I don't pay respect to the number of ways that can happen, I can really beat up on myself and say, like, going to grad school even was a huge plot twist. That was a huge plot twist. And I try to focus on that when I, talk about things here, because it was just so out of the blue for me as an opportunity. And I think life is like that. So it's like about being malleable to the ways that it shows up. But part of this starts with us recognizing our light and knowing that it we don't have to do anything, because there's nothing it can't do, which means that if there's nothing it can't do, it is the unstoppable force, and it negates an immovable object. So the unstoppable force, right? That's your light in the world. There's nothing it can't do. But what does that mean then for what you get to do, and for what you get to experience, and what you need to do? Sometimes it's okay to just be. And in that vein, tomorrow I won't be releasing a video of this because I'm fortunate enough to work in a way that allows me some time to, a lot of time actually, to do videos on here and to put content out there. So I can do a lot of it. Like, I thrive in the environment of creation and things like that. So there's that. But I have tomorrow off, and I am not going to be posting something here in terms of A Course in Creativity. Why? Because I need my light to just be. Right? And it's okay to do that. And I think that we can get so caught up in this idea of being consistent and believing that consistency is the only thing when it really is part of many things, right? And sometimes we just need that time to refill our cup, right? We need that time to refill our cup. And that's the beauty of being able to, learn lessons, and being malleable is also taking all of this in. But so this lesson 38, your creative spark was kind of baked into the pie here. So I appreciate you watching. And if this resonated, my friends, please like and subscribe. It helps me to grow this channel. But just remember today, what would you feel if you knew you couldn't fail? If you knew that no feeling was a failure, because you're not here to do anything. You're not here to do. Your light does the doing for you. You're just here to be, and to be in the flow, right? To be in the flow. When I'm kayaking on the water, paddling into a headwind, while fun for the way that in the shallows the waves were going really high, but do I want to do that every day? No. It's a hell of a lot easier to just float and to let the current carry you so that you can take in the scenery and just cherish where you are. Wherever this finds you on the time-space continuum, morning, afternoon, or night, I hope it finds you very, very well. Take care and have a beautiful day.